Hey, everybody. This is Chris
and Cathy.
We wanted to take a minute to thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate every listener and are grateful for this platform.
Please help us share our vision by subscribing to our show through your favorite streaming app. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Petability Podcast.
Check out our ever-growing list of affiliates and sponsors. Simply go to the show notes for information and links.
And be sure to use our promo code PETPOD22, that's PETPOD 22, on checkout to receive your discount from our affiliates. And now, here's a word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Alon Landa, CEO of MedcoVet, and I'm a proud sponsor of Petability. We decided to partner with Chris and Cathy because, like them, we want to empower all pet owners who are trying to do the most for their pets. At MedcoVet, we specialize in advanced home laser therapy for pets. Laser therapy is a safe and effective treatment for common conditions like arthritis and wounds, and it relieves pain for most conditions caused by inflammation. With MedcoVet, pet owners can perform this treatment at home while receiving support from experienced clinicians. If you think your pet would benefit from healing at home, visit medcovet.com, and one of our clinical experts will work with you to determine if home laser therapy is the right fit for you and your pet. Tell them Petability sent you.
Wanted to get the love back because I had lost so much in that week. And now I'm sharing the love and I'm spreading the love around through Toby.
Welcome to Petability. I'm your host, Cathy Simons, certified veterinary technician, certified canine rehabilitation practitioner, and certified hospice and palliative care technician for pets.
And I'm your host, Chris Cranston, licensed physical therapist and small animal physical rehabilitationist.
Our podcast provides interviews and information to help your pets live their best lives.
Cathy, a fine good day to you.
A fine good day to you too, Chris. What's going on over there?
Well, I asked you how you would feel about doing a show related to therapy dogs. And you were all about it. Yes, that's a great topic and one we haven't touched on yet. And I'm like, not sure why we haven't thought of this. We typically talk about providing therapy for the dogs in our care, as two physical rehabilitationists. And this time we're going to be interviewing a stellar, wonderful, perfect example of a therapy dog team, handler and dog, that I just happened to meet. And I would say this was a serendipitous meeting. And here we are.
I'm really excited about this topic, Chris. And I can't believe that we haven't covered it already because it's really important work. When I hear stories about therapy dogs and how they've transformed people in the hospital or in nursing homes or recovery, it's a big deal. So I'm really excited to learn more.
Mm-hmm. And there is a lot to learn. So our guest today is Diane Murano, and I met her in a chorus that I joined recently. And I told one of the persons there that I was a canine physical rehabilitationist, physical therapist for dogs. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, I have to introduce you to Diane because Diane has done over 1,000 therapy dog visits with her dog, Toby."
Wow.
So the very next rehearsal, we met up and Diane is just a hoot, as I'm sure you'll appreciate during the course of our little chat here. But I was astounded when she told me the emotional impact on her, how much joy Toby has brought to the world. And when I started investigating and looking into this in preparation for our chat today, it made me realize just how remarkable over 1,000 visits is. I think Diane told me recently it's 1,017 is what they're up to. So according to the AKC, there are at least 228 therapy dog organizations. This is probably a low number, but that means that there are over 50,000 certified therapy dogs in the United States alone. A therapy dog, by definition, provides both emotional and physical support. As the name implies, they serve a therapeutic purpose. And we're going to get into that. How are they impacting the people that they touch. One of the nationally recognized organizations is called Alliance for Therapy Dogs, or ATD, and their tagline is sharing smiles and joy. And I think that really captures the purpose of these therapy dog teams. That is found nationwide. They've been in existence for over 30 years. So just a little bit of background about, what we're going to be getting into today. But before I spill all the beans, let's welcome Diane Murano to the show.
It's great to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm more than happy to do this interview.
Diane, I say we jump right in because I want to hear your story. Yeah, how did you get into this line of work? And I want to hear about all things Toby. How did you recognize that Toby was going to be good as a service or a therapy dog?
In 2012, three things happened in my life. In the span of 5 days, I lost my mother. And 2 days later, her brother died, my uncle. And then 3 days later, when I buried my mother, I had to put my dog Emma to sleep. So I was in a bad way. I was lost without them, and I was searching for love. I was trying to heal. And you go for a walk without your dog, and you sit at the lake and you think about what's next now. So I needed a dog in my life and came down the hill, and up the hill comes this girl with a giant golden doodle. And I stopped her, and she told me about the breed. And I told her I just lost the dog. And we were sharing a story back and forth. So I went home and I looked up golden doodle. The first hit I got was AmericanGoldenDoodle.com. And I called her up immediately and I told her my story. And she told me, come down right away. I just had a litter of 11 puppies. Well, I told my husband, we jumped in the car. And when I got there, I was on the floor and they were all over me. I was like the opposite of Cruella de Vil. They were just climbing all over my body and licking me and loving me. And I had fallen in love immediately. So over the course of those weeks, I would go down every 2 weeks to see the progress of the dogs, their growth. And I narrowed it down and I picked Toby. I brought him home. We completely fell in love with him immediately. He was right on my shoulder. He was only 4 pounds. So I started training Toby right away. He was a ball of fire. So I started training Toby, and I trained for a year with a state policeman. And every weekend we would go and we went through basic training, sit, stay, calm down, the basics. And then we took a break and then went into intermediate, which is greeting a friendly stranger, walking on a loose leash. So we finished intermediate, and he was so wonderful at learning. They want to learn. They really want to learn. Dogs need to be trained. They want to learn. They want to please you. And right before we finished intermediate training, 2 things happened in New England. The first thing was the Sandy Hook school shooting, which left 28 individuals dead. And the impact that had on me when I saw the therapy dogs on TV in that small, sleepy town, I was sitting on the couch with Toby. He was about 6 months old. And I'm like, what's a therapy dog? I had no idea. And I read an article in the paper on the Sandy Hook incident. And it said that therapy dogs were brought in from Chicago. These Chicago therapy dogs travel the country. They go to disaster relief, nursing homes, hospitals, everywhere. And they were brought in, and I was watching the article, and a little piece focused on the children and what they had experienced. They're 6 years old, and they wouldn't talk to anybody about what they saw that day. But they told the dogs. They sat and told the dogs, and this is how they pieced everything together about that tragedy. So I'm like, this was in the back of my mind the whole time. And then I decided, well, let's go all the way to advanced. And advanced training consists of hand commands only. So Toby knows all my hand commands. I don't even have to talk to him. I can sit him and down him from 20 feet away just by holding my hand up in the air. So he was learning fast. We were in advanced training, our final training. This was in April of 2013. And that was the day of the Boston Marathon. You know, the excitement, the millions of people from all around the world. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. And to watch it on TV, sitting next to Toby, you know, and then the bombs went off. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing in front of me. And, you know, television coverage, morning, noon, and night, everybody's glued to the TV. And a lot of the runners, they ran to the hospitals to give blood. And so I thought that, so we just watched TV all week. And I looked at my husband, and that's when I saw the dogs again. I saw them on TV. I'm like, oh my God, they were those comfort dogs again. So we packed Toby up and we took off into town right then and there, a week after they opened up Boylston Street. And I met the people behind the therapy dogs. And we stopped to say our prayers at the memorial. It was very emotional. And they told me about Therapy Dogs International. So I'm like, okay. I said, how do I get in? He goes, well, you have to be trained. The dog has to be trained. I'm like, yes, we are. We've been through a year of training with a state policeman. And he goes, now you need to be evaluated by an organization. So I chose Therapy Dogs International as that organization to be evaluated by. So after completing the 3 levels of training, I felt that Toby could be evaluated by this organization. And Therapy Dog International, they subjected Toby to several tests to ensure that he was fit for the job. We were in an arena with other people, and the tests looked at his ability to block out distractions. Because when you visit children in a school or patients in a hospital, there's all kinds of things going on. And the dog has to remain calm. His comfort level, they tested around a variety of people with many different disabilities. And if he was comfortable walking through different terrains, elevators, hospital equipment, kids running up and down the hall, and all these tests that we were tested for that day at Therapy Dogs International were replicas of potential pitfalls that he would likely see in the field. So our last test, they told me, if they're all walking around with clipboards, I'm like, Diane, sit your dog and walk all the way across the other side of the arena, which was about 100 feet away. And she said to me, now call your dog. And I said to myself, oh, we just learned this. We just learned this hand signal. I'm praying to God, please. And I gave him the hand signal to come to me, and he came right over. And that's when she shook my hand. She said, welcome to Therapy Dogs International. And that was the day we were certified.
Diane, as you're talking, I can feel the pain of Sandy Hook and the Boston Marathon all over again. And yeah, and I hear your emotion in it, but it makes me feel, when I think about these therapy dogs who came to the aid of the people that were there, of those tragedies, and how they must have felt safe to just tell these dogs what was going on, tell the dog their stories, and the people at the Boston Marathon, what they saw, the trauma they experienced. Those dogs were safe, in a world that wasn't very safe at the moment. Yeah.
And, after a year had passed, we went to the marathon the next year. In 2014, we went in and we met the comfort dogs from Chicago, met the people behind the dogs. And she had asked me a question. She goes, so what was your inspiration? And I looked at her and I started crying. And I'm like, you guys inspired me. So we said our goodbyes and we proceeded on as far as we could get, as close to the marathon finish line. But things had changed and a lot of people weren't allowed that close anymore.
Well, and for our audience, in case you hadn't picked this up in Diane's classic Boston accent, she is from the Boston, Massachusetts area. So when, she's describing this, I mean, it's very intimate for all of us.
Yeah.
Cathy, myself, and Diane, we all live around Boston. So we were here when the marathon bombings took place, and I admire you, Diane, for doing something, being proactive and, making life better for those followed. Before we get too farther into it, can you explain the difference between a therapy dog and a service animal or an emotional support animal?
Therapy dog is a dog that's trained to provide affection, comfort, and support to people in hospitals, retirement homes, nursing homes, schools, libraries, hospice, or disaster areas. Dogs that help people walk.
Right?
Those are service animals. People don't know the difference. They use Great Danes now to help people walk around because they're so tall.
There's an organization very close to where I live, and that's what they do. They're
Right.
physical support for individuals that may have balance issues or so forth. So service animals are usually trained from a very, very young age to determine their fitness for a particular task based on maybe their breed and physical stature or their emotional being or what have you. But I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours and dollars go into service animals that are then placed with an individual that needs that service. So it's a very formalized and specialized thing. And I think oftentimes lately I've seen a lot of people buying vests and maybe using a misnomer, maybe unwittingly, let's hope so, but they do each have a very specific role. And Diane, you already talked about like how Toby was trained and the rigors that he was put through with his testing to be certified. Very, very different years-long process by professionals that are training the service animals and then placed with an individual. And then my impression, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but an emotional support animal is usually a pet that provides them emotional support. So if we have anxiety or depression or something, that animal, just by their nature, being an animal and that's there for them with unconditional love and is always there, provides them emotional support. And I don't think that's a special certification of any type.
It really isn't. It's, it's like they need a teddy bear to hold, and their animal is their support, their comfort. But they have no certification. I went to every visit, and I still do, with proof wrapped around my neck in a placard around my neck, and paperwork and rabies shots. I have all the information hanging around my neck in case anybody asks me.
Like we talked about, the animals that are therapy dogs or are service dogs have been selected specifically because of their temperament for that they've been trained to do. And I worry about some of these animals that have been labeled as emotional support animals about what they're experiencing. So especially some of these animals that aren't dogs. So I think there was a lady who tried to get on the airport with a peacock once. And I was thinking that peacock is probably so stressed out because they're not equipped for that sort of thing. And they haven't been trained for that sort of thing. So I think it's a little unfair to put those animals in that position, having not being trained to be a dog that supports you because you have PTSD or depression or what have you. So it's a little,
when Therapy Dogs International certifies you, you are under their auspices now. You cannot claim any other organization outside of them. They're very strict. They're incredibly strict. During one of our tests in that arena that day, evaluator, she put pieces of steak on the floor, and she looked at the lady in front of me and she said, "Walk your dog by that food and don't let him eat it." So I'm standing there, I'm like, oh God. But we had just learned this in training, so I knew Toby could deal with this. So the lady proceeded to walk her dog, and the dog ate all the food. Ate it right off the floor. Now that's the leave it command. You go into hospitals. I've seen medication on the floor. I've seen sponges with blood on the floor. I've seen hypodermic needles on the floor. The dog needs to know the leave it command. So when it was my turn to walk by the food, when she replaced the food, I just tugged on his collar and I gave him a leave it. They are actually looking up to you to tell them what to do. And it was that command that I gave him that she just looked at me and she couldn't believe. She goes, "You just learned that in training, didn't you?" I said, "Yes, I did. I just learned that." And, the studies show that, when Toby enters a facility because of all his training, all I hear at first is, "Oh, look at this. Oh, look at the dog." And immediately the blood pressure of that person just looking is lowering and lowering, and the calmness comes over the person. They have to be perfect, perfect little angels. Toby is so affectionate and nurturing. I tell everybody, this is my fiance. I got him on a leash. This is my husband. I make it funny for the people in the nursing homes, and I'm telling you, I'll say to them, "Toby is so romantic. Wait till you see him." And as soon as I walk into their room, they're just overwhelmed. You can see it all over their faces. But therapy dogs are the oldest in the country. They've been around since I believe the 70s, and they're located in Flanders, New Jersey. And they stand behind the training. They certify you because they're giving you insurance in case something happens out of the ordinary. They will insure if something happens, which it never has. So you have to follow their rule. The dog, when you go into it, has to be immaculate, perfectly cleaned. And this is what I've been used to for the past 12 years. I'm so proud of him. I'm sharing my candy bar. And
Yeah.
I wasn't one to share my candy as a kid. Okay, so I'm sharing my candy with and I wanted I wanted to get the love back because I had lost so much in that week. And now I'm sharing the love and I'm spreading the love around through Toby.
If I were to ask what you get from doing the visits, I mean, you said you're sharing the love, but what does it do for you on the insides? Like, what do you feel? Why did you do this many visits over the years? Yeah.
I believe that it was my mother was pushing me. My deceased mother was pushing me. Get this love back. Keep going. Keep going. We did 5 visits a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, someplace different every single day. I established a clientele. Therapy dogs would send me an email and say, "Oh, there's a facility in your area looking for therapy dogs." So I would contact them and I would send them the paperwork. We would do a meet and greet. And then we would establish times where I would visit. And I just love the looks on people's faces when they finally meet him. And I'm proud. I'm proud. That saying, pride goeth before a fall. Well, I'm proud for him, not for myself. It's for him. And it just makes me feel wonderful, like I'm making them feel wonderful. It's a good feeling when you give back.
How do you think Toby feels about it? Because I see a lot of these, the therapy dogs in the hospital setting, and they also look proud of themselves. They also seem like they're getting some benefit as well.
Well, they are. See, dogs, they need a job. They need something to do. You get a dog and you just let it lie around the house, let it lie outside. Dogs need to walk. They need to smell the roses because their nose is so important. Everything they smell tells their brain a story of where that smell came from, where it went, where it's coming back. They need a job. They need to be stimulated. That I just started because I wanted he was going to grow up to be a giant and he needed exercise. And I just thought this was going to be perfect. I had no idea I was going to be a therapy dog handler had it not been for those 2 tragedies that happened during his training. I had no idea. It's rewarding when you give back to people. I tell people that Therapy Dogs International is the greatest job that never paid me. It's a volunteer effort and I get paid in my heart. So I just kept going and I started keeping count. And the first year when I hit 100, I'm like, all right, I averaged 150 visits a year between September when school opened to June when school closed. And everywhere in between, I averaged about 150. And every year it was just getting higher and higher. Just wanted to see how far I could push myself. And then we reached 1,000 visits on my mother's birthday,
Oh,
which was
how
pretty
fitting.
crazy.
Yeah, how
Yep.
fitting.
And really, right on my mother's birthday. And the school that I visited, it's like K through 5, they threw Toby a giant party. And that was the day we retired last May. But I still visit them as I'm grandfathered in. I still visit them once a week. But COVID shut us down for, almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And Toby wasn't getting any younger. So we couldn't go to the hospital. The hospital was my favorite place. I would spend hours in the hospital and the nursing homes. And all of a sudden we couldn't go anymore. And that was hard because, he would lift his head up and, he'd be like, all right, I'm ready. But I'm like, all right, let's just go out for a walk. But
Yeah,
I
he
get a
probably was.
lot. You get a lot when you give back. You get it. You get it twofold in your heart. Just by seeing someone smile, seeing someone. We did hospice the first year of our visiting, and that was hard because a lot of hospice patients, they're not aware that you're even there in the room. But he would go over and put his head on their lap, and I would pick the hand up and just help them pat him. And even though they didn't know we were there, they knew there was something, a little smile across the face or something that you could recognize that, oh, somebody's here to visit me.
We'll be right back.
Hey, dog lovers, is your furry friend limping or struggling to keep up like they used to? It might be osteoarthritis or OA, a common source of pain and mobility issues in dogs that's driven by inflammation in their joints. Inflammation is the silent enemy, not only causing pain, but also accelerating the progression of OA. Synovitin OA is a groundbreaking one-time injection into the arthritic joint that targets the very cells causing the pain and inflammation. By eliminating these harmful cells, Synovitin OA breaks the cycle of inflammation, offering up to 1 full year of relief right where it's needed most. Don't let your dog suffer from the pain of arthritis. Visit activedognow.com to learn more about Synovitin OA and give your dog the gift of long-lasting, pain-free movement again.
Studied in canine elbow, Synovitin OA is given by authorized veterinarians. Temporary discomfort and treated joints may occur. Talk to a treating veterinarian near you for more information, including what to expect following treatment, and visit www.activedognow.com. Have you witnessed a particularly powerful or moving moment involving Toby?
Well, there's so many, but 2 stand out. And the first one, we were in a nursing home that we visit every Thursday for years before COVID hit. And Victoria, she was a former administrator of the Stone Zoo in Stoneham. And now she was in this nursing home under long-term care. So we would go every Thursday and like, hi, Toby, say, oh, I love him. And I'm going to have you come to the zoo. And, she was just talking and we were all having fun together. And then one day I walked in and they told me that Victoria, she wasn't doing very well. So I talked to one of the girls, Sarah, and I said, just give me 5 minutes with her. So I went in by myself with Toby, and she was lying down, and she was appeared to be sleeping, but I knew otherwise. And I went over next to her, and I said, Victoria. I whispered in her ear, I said, Toby's here. And Toby put his head right next to her pillow. And she opened up her eyes, and she said, I love you.
Oh, man.
And like 2 hours later, she had passed away. So that, I'll never forget that as long as I live. That she saw him at her bedside, and that was the last thing she got before she passed away was his love.
What a
Wow.
wonderful
And
way
then
to depart
it's
this pain.
amazing.
You said
And
there was
then there's
another
another
one.
one.
Yeah.
Oh boy, yeah, there is. Same nursing home. So I had done all the rooms, and at the very end of the hallway was the giant dining room where they have little activities and they eat and all that. So I was standing at the last room before the dining room, and I was talking to the physical therapist and I was talking to the nurse, and Toby was sitting by my side, being like a gentleman. But he kept pulling. Like he wanted to go into the dining room. And I'm like, Toby, stop, be a good boy. And he just wouldn't stop. So I dropped the leash. I said, go. And he trotted into the dining area and he stopped and sat down at a chair. And he was wagging his tail and being a dog. He was so happy. And the three of us are watching him. Well, there was nobody in the chair. In fact, there was nobody in the entire room, but somebody was calling him.
He was visiting with somebody you couldn't see, Diane, but he was visiting somebody.
Yep, somebody was calling him, like, come on over with, clubby clapping the hands. And I have a feeling I know who it was, but it was good. It was beautiful.
Let me ask you this, kind of going back to talking about dogs who are trained specifically for this type of therapy work. Are there any types of breeds of dogs that tend to make the best therapy dogs, or is it more just about their temperament?
Yeah, that's a good question. Any dog can become a therapy dog, but they have to be trained. Toby has a Rottweiler friend who is a therapy dog. Toby has a Mastiff, a friend that is a therapy dog. But these dogs that are categorized as aggressive, for lack of a better word, they are stigmatized by society. Oh, Rottweiler. Oh, no, you can't. But they can if they're trained. You need to train your dog. And his therapy dog friend, the Rottweiler, what a beautiful sweetheart she is. Very gentle. So they have to be gentle. But the best breeds, in my opinion, are retrievers, golden retrievers, Labrador retrievers. They're just the big teddy bears of the dog world.
Diane, I do think that, past experiences, nurture nature, definitely impact. And for me, I think the bottom line is, as you said originally, it's not a breed, but based on what that breed was originally maybe bred to do, they could be better suited for therapy dog work. I did therapy dog certification through an organization several years ago with my previous Cavalier Dagny. It was interesting. We went through several classes and then had our testing day, and it's so nerve-wracking, right? But what they were really looking for, and I was so surprised because after the first class, there were several that were missing. And I happened to be friends with one of the evaluators. And of course, she couldn't, disclose details or anything. But I said, I noticed, that 3 or 4 of the dogs aren't here today. I said, did they just not come back, or were they dismissed? And she said several of them were dismissed. And I was like, really? Why? And she said, because we could see that the dog wasn't happy. It was stressed. It was simply stressed being in that room with the people and the other dogs. And, and we were basically just getting a lecture, like, this is what the organization is about, and this is what to expect, and this is what we're going to do, in the following sessions. And this is how it culminates in the testing and evaluation. And they could see that in those particular animals. I was very surprised that we made it through based on my Cavalier's medical conditions and her habits, but she was such a good girl there. They're like, yeah, she's unflappable. And you were talking about, she had to have a wheelchair run by her and walkers and crutches and the leave it command and be able to walk on a loose lead and sit and, all of that good stuff. I was so, like you said, so proud of her. But unlike you, Diane, I did go to one facility besides animals. My next most beloved thing is older people. I really, really like hanging out with our elders. So I went to a local home, residence, assisted living, and we go there once a week. Our sessions were limited to about maybe 30 to 45 minutes. But if I lingered and went longer than that, Dagny was exhausted. So I think that's something, again, in their temperament to look for as well, because they're putting out that energy. And she was little, she weighed maybe 11, 12 pounds. So unlike Toby, which, he would walk around and be petted and so forth, I would place her in the lap of a resident and, they would pet her and so forth. But it really took a lot out of her. So as our audience is listening, think about the pets in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be a dog, but would they be amenable to these kinds of visits? Would you, as a handler, be able to handle these kinds of visits? And like you said, Diane, there's all kinds. I mean, you could go into a library and have young children read to your dog. It's not that it's always in a setting where there's tragedy or maybe, end of life is imminent. You can find your niche, but I think it takes a special person and a special dog to make this work. So kudos to you and Toby.
Thank you. I read his body language. Okay, we all have that language that our bodies make without even knowing we're doing it. And when the tail goes down, he's tired. And when he'll start to pant a little, he's tired. And you would lift your dog into the laps of people. Well, Toby would climb right into bed with them because he was tired. But I have so many pictures of him in bed with patients, just lying there. And you're absolutely right. Therapy dogs, they limit to an hour and a half. But I would drag it on longer because we would take a break and lie around, go in the coffee room. And I would say, Toby, you want to go again? And he would sit right up. You're absolutely right. They do get tired, and it's good to watch and read the body language.
I'm thinking about the smells in some of the settings that you had mentioned. And again, I would think, well, that could be stressful or anxiety producing. You have to have the right dog because there's the smell of blood, bodily fluids. I mean, we're using dogs now to alert, these would be service dogs, but alert people when they're about to have a seizure or when their blood sugar drops and they may become comatose due to diabetes or something like that. They can smell death. So not every dog or person is going to be suited, for that setting. I don't even think like a veterinary professional would be able to guide you. Right. I mean, maybe a little bit, you want them to be, physically sound, like, as you said, healthy, groomed, all of that. But it's really going to be you as their person and knowing them and what they're capable of, but also going through the rigors of doing this the right way and getting the training and the certification, because then you will have the confidence. If we're not confident, if we're stressed or nervous, the dog is going to feel it and they're going to be stressed or nervous. So ladies, what else do we need to address here before we sign off?
I think we covered just about everything, Chris. It's funny because as you're talking, you guys are talking, I have my phone next to me and it just is set on Instagram, and it coincidentally came up to a pet love doctor, and it's an elderly woman with a miniature horse who's being her therapy animal for the day. I was like, well, that was really fitting. But
so they're wonderful. They block out the right dog will block out the distractions if they're trained properly, and they will succeed. And Friday we're going on our 1018th visit on Friday.
Wow. Congratulations.
We still visit. He's still here. He's 13, just turned 13. And he still needs to move. He has arthritis in his hips, and and I think his eyes are getting a little cloudy, and just going down the stairs one at a time. He walks he walks kind of funny in his back legs, but doesn't matter. He loves everything, and he just he's keeping on going. And the fact that he's 13 says a lot. My dogs have lived to be 15 and a half, 14. Toby's now 13.
I mean, also gets a tremendous amount of enrichment that he's getting from visiting people. I think he gets a lot of benefit out of that as well. I think there's a lot to be said for that. Like you said, he's got a job, and I have a pug, and my pug has a job, and he loves it. He thinks he's very special because he has a job. Right. Of all the gifts that we've been given as humans, as a species, the dog is probably the best of all the gifts that we have, and the power of that unconditional love and how it can move mountains. I mean, the stories that you're telling, that's the just people feeling so safe around these animals and being able to share their stories and their sorrow and their pain, knowing that the dog is going to be completely non-judgmental and still love you anyway, regardless of what you are or who you are or what you've been through.
What about those stories of like the person that verbalizes for the first time? A very good friend of mine would take her dog, a very large Old English bulldog, Bubba, appropriately named. He was about 80 pounds, to a special school where the children had severe, disabilities, and many of them were nonverbal and, needed assistive devices to locomote and things like that. And she was told that one of the kids in particular had never spoken a word in the years that he had been there. And Bubba came, and after a few visits, he started verbalizing and talking to Bubba.
That's beautiful.
Again, the things we don't know, right? Like, how does that work?
We only visit children that have are on the spectrum in the 12 years, only those kind of kids. And there was one girl, she wouldn't look anybody in the eye, but by the end of the school year, eye contact right at me because of Toby. She was looking me right in the eye. It was beautiful.
And that eye contact was probably her way of communicating, I want you to come to me with Toby.
One other student that comes to my mind, and she met Toby. She was probably 5, and she was in a preschool, and she would run away behind the teacher crying. And Toby's a giant, he's a big baby. And then 3 months later, I caught her brushing him on the floor, lying down next to him, brushing him. 3 months ago, she was running away crying from him.
Yeah.
And now she's like the little nursemaid. Every time I go see her on Friday, she wants to give him water. She get his dish filled with water. And she asks me, brush, brush. I'm like, okay, here you go. And she's like a little grandma around him.
Yeah.
It's adorable.
Because she had positive interactions, and it showed her that there was nothing to fear.
Right.
And I know I recently asked you, did you get any special recognitions and things? And you sent me some certificates at your 300th visit.
Yeah. Well, we walked into our 300th visit at a nursing home, and there were, they threw Toby a little party, and there was Jason Lewis, who is the clerk of the Senate, was there to award us with 2 citations, one from the state Senate and one from the House of Representatives, signed by the Speaker of the House and the state representative, Paul Brodeur. And we have them framed in the house. They're beautiful with the seal of the state. I never expected this, never at all. And I'm so proud to have these certificates hanging on my wall. The real deal,
I bet you are.
And then we had gone to the Spalding rehab right after the runners in the marathon. So we visited there for a number of months, and we marched in the Charlestown parade with all the hospital representatives, and they just loved him so much there. And then we had visited the Shriners Burn Hospital in Boston. Hardest thing I've ever seen in my life. But once I saw the smiles on those children, all that horror went away. These kids come from all over the world, and I had to brace myself for what I was about to see. And after 5 minutes, I didn't see it anymore. All I saw was Toby, because you generate your love down the leash into the dog, and the dog gives the child the love back. So there's been so many roads.
Diane, that's the perfect ending to the show.
Mm-hmm.
The love you give radiates down the leash, and then the dog gives it back to someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
As long as Toby gives back that love, and he doesn't care.
Diane, you got recognized at your 300th visit, which was well deserved. We've now talked about this week is going to be 1018. when I was looking up the AKC, huge organization, right? The American Kennel Club, they have a therapy dog program, and their highest title is called Therapy Dog Supreme. And that is at 600 visits. So they have others at 100, 200, and so forth. But 600 is the highest that they recognize. And you are almost at twice that amount.
Shaw, I'm way past that.
But I wanted to ask, because again, I hope that people out there will consider doing this type of work, because it's altruistic. You are giving so much, but yet symbiotic in the way that you're also getting it back, right? The joy is just spread throughout. But I don't think there's a minimum number. It's not like you have to commit to doing, a weekly visit or anything. You can pick and choose how often you want to go, where you want to go. It's very flexible. So please, our listeners, consider perhaps doing this if you think that your dog, it would be amenable to this, because it does provide so much for folks out there.
It certainly does.
So as we're closing here, I just want to assure you that we will include the names and websites of a couple of organizations that are well reputed here. If you wanted to learn more about therapy dog work, what it takes to become a therapy dog, the certification, the training, etc. One of those is Alliance for Therapy Dogs. And then the other, as Diane and Toby went through, is Therapy Dogs International. And Diane, you mentioned that you chose Therapy Dogs International, TDI.org. You want to share with our audience why you chose them?
Because they were the oldest. They were at both locations that influenced my decision for Toby. They were in Sandy Hook. They were at the Boston Marathon, and they're everywhere. And that was my decision. I wanted to go with the best.
Do your research, figure out what's going to work for you. And I just wanted to share, Cathy doesn't even know this, Diane, a little secret of ours.
There's a secret?
Yes, revealed here first. Meaning Diane, Toby, and I are meeting at my mom's memory care facility on Saturday in just a few days. My mom is going to be over the moon with joy when she meets Toby. And I'm planning to take a bunch of pictures and videos and so forth. And so we will be posting those on our social media. Diane has also shared a number of things already with us online. So, be looking for that. We're very excited to promote Therapy Dogs. And thank you so much for all you've done, Diane. And keep up the good fight.
It's my pleasure.
I am so happy for Chris's mom. That is going to be great.
He's going to be so romantic with her. She better watch out.
She likes them tall and handsome. And I've seen his eyelashes in those pictures too. Those are some.
He's a natural. He's a natural blonde.
All right. Well, thank you, Diane. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Hi, Petability fans. This is your host, Cathy Simons. Do you live with a blind or visually impaired dog? Don't let vision loss stand in the way of a full, joyful life. In my book, Blind Devotion, Enhancing the Lives of Blind and Visually Impaired Dogs, I share my expertise and passion to help pet owners like you navigate life with a blind dog. From adapting your home to building trust and confidence, this book is your go-to resource for ensuring your furry friend thrives. Your dog's vision may be limited, but their potential isn't. Empower your dog. Get Blind Devotion today at Amazon.com.